Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar entitled Protection Against the Latest Scams. If you'd like to use the CART services for closed captioning, please click on CC and then show subtitles to turn the captions on. Although this presentation is being recorded, only the presenters will be recorded and participant questions will not be identified. My name is Maura Pensack and I'm the Housing Liaison for the City of Cambridge. Today's webinar is part of the city's Housed in Cambridge Information to Open Doors campaign, and we're extremely happy to partner with the Cambridge Police Department to offer this extremely important webinar. Housed in Cambridge is a citywide outreach, education, and information campaign that's designed to promote and inform residents about all things housing. We've been holding monthly webinars on various housing topics since April of last year, and someday, when we're able to, we will be doing in-person trainings. The Cambridge Police Department, as you know, often works to inform and assist our community on all types of safety issues and concerns. Hosting in-person trainings on scam protection has been one of their many efforts to partner with residents and support our community. Typically, the scam protection trainings have been held at various locations in the city. And again, hopefully in the coming months, they'll be able to do that again. But for now, we're glad to have this format available. Today's information is, I don't have to tell you, is critically important. In this day and age, there are so many ways that those with malintent actively try to really take advantage and take possession of our assets, whether that's our identity or our bank accounts. While oftentimes folks in their senior years are targeted, really everyone is vulnerable and can fall prey to their oftentimes creative, ingenious, persistent, and in fact convincing topics. So we're really glad again to have the Cambridge Police Department here to help us learn how to protect ourselves, yourself, and others that we know and love. Before I turn it over to the panelists, I'm just going to quickly introduce Crystal Rosa, who's the program administrator for the City Human Rights Commission and technical guru for the Housing Cambridge campaign. And she's going to explain how to ask a question.
Hi, thank you, Maura. And let me just get to the technical guru, but here we are. I'm scrolling down. To ask the questions, please hover toward the bottom and you'll activate the Q&A box. You need to type in your question in the box to click send. Only the presenters will be able to view your questions. Presenters will verbally respond to as many questions as possible throughout the presentation. Typed questions will not be recorded. And if you choose to, you can send questions anonymously. Just make sure to click on the box. And after the webinar, you'll receive a recording of this event. So I'm going to stop sharing and let the police department.
Thank you. And so, yeah, Sergeant Yam and Officer Mahoney, please take it away. And thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Crystal. Thank you, Maura. On behalf of the Cambridge Department, I'd like to thank you for allowing us to share this information with you. My name is Paco Yam. I'm a sergeant of the Family Social Justice Section. In that section, I oversee business outreach, senior outreach, mental health, and homeless outreach.
Hello, everybody. My name is Officer Matt Mahoney. I'm also in the Family Social Justice Section, and I am currently the Mental Health Outreach Officer as well as the Senior Outreach Officer.
So I'm going to start this presentation off with this number of scams that City of Cambridge have experienced. And this is from 2021. So we have January stats up to the end of November. So within those 11 months, I'm going to run down some numbers about the total numbers of scams that we have within that 11-month period. I'm also going to break it down to the type that we have. And further, we're going to show you the top 9 scams that affected the residents of the City of Cambridge. And after that, Officer Mahoney is going to run down a presentation about the scams that's also affecting us. And after that, we're going to give some tips. And then after that, we have a Q&A. So let me start by giving you the amount of scams that we've experienced from January 2021 to November of 2021. So in total, we have 192 scams that we have identified. And within the 192, 98 of that were internet-related scams. 32 were government-related. 27 were housing scams. 12 were utility imposter scams. 4 was lottery. 4 was travel. 4 was charities. 2 were extortion/kidnap. And 2 were housework, and the regulars were classified as other. So now I'm going to talk about the top 9 scams which affected the city of Cambridge. So number 1, the first type of scam that we received is a victim will receive a spoof call from a number that appears on non-emergency business line of the Cambridge Police Department. That number is 617-349-3300. And in which a caller claims that they are investigating a crime as a way to obtain the victim's bank information, social security numbers, or date of birth. The second one is a caller claims to have either kidnapped or been in an accident with a victim's relative and states that the relative is being held for ransom. The third top scam that the city is experiencing is a caller claims to work for a government and states that there's a warrant out for the victim's arrest unless you pay for a fee for them to clear it up. The fourth scam, the most popular, is a victim receives a notice that a claim for unemployment benefits has been filed with the government using their personal information, but the victim never filed that type of claim. 5, someone approaches a victim on the street stating that they need money for gas. 6, a caller claims to be from the IRS and says that the victim has been audited and owes money. So this scam is often prevalent, especially throughout the tax season. 7, online rental scams in which a victim sends money and later discovers that there is no apartment to rent. Number 8, a caller claims to be from a utility company and demands payment on an outstanding bill. And finally, number 9, a caller claims to be offering computer services or antivirus software and needs to access the victim's computer where they are able to remotely gain personal information. So those are the top 9 scams that we have experienced in this city. And in total, again, within those 11-month period, we had 192. I'll turn that over to Officer Mahoney.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Sergeant Leo. All right, so we're going to start off with just some, telephone and online scams, which again, this is, what we see typically. And also, I'd like to just remind everybody that any information that that you might learn in this presentation, just please share it with family, friends, neighbors, whoever, because a lot of people, we no matter how many times we give this presentation, we just see that people, they still do get they get caught up in these scams, because a lot of these people that that perpetrate these things, they're actually very good at their job, being con men, and they're very convincing. So just again, knowledge is power, so to speak. So just again, we always just say share it with our friends and family. Next slide, Crystal. All right, so the first one we're going to talk, we call it the grandparent scam. This is when you'll get a phone call. Typically, obviously, they try to focus on senior citizens, and the person will call and they'll say, grandma, grandpa, and they'll say, it's your favorite grandson. And then the grandparent will say, oh, Michael, is that you? Yeah, it's me. And then they either say they're like out of state and they've been in some sort of accident, and they're at the hospital and they need money for to pay the hospital bill, or they've been arrested, and that could be anywhere. It could be in state, out of state. They've been arrested, they need money for bail. And the third one is where someone else will call, a third party will call and say, we have your grandson here kidnapped. If you want us to release him, you're going to have to, give us X amount of money. And then at that point, they'll say, I'll put him on the phone now, just so you know, so you know that I'm being serious here. And again, it's just, what they're doing is they're targeting on your fears. And a lot of times, they'll ask leading questions. And when we talk to the victims, they'll say, well, the person knew my name. When in reality, the person who called might have said, it's your favorite grandson. And then the victim says, oh, Michael, is that you? So they didn't really know their name. They kind of set them up. And then, just in the confusion of it all like the stress, the person gives up information without even realizing it. Next slide, Crystal. So again, they know general information, but again, it's more of like a leading question. So along with that, I like to add to that, there's something else. It's called the lottery scam. That is usually, that's not via phone call. That's usually an email. You'll get an email or sometimes a letter in the mail. You get the US postal mail where the person in the email says, hey, you just won, X amount of money in this lottery. However, before you can collect your winnings, send us $500, for processing, or send us, $5,000 to cover the taxes. And then once you send us this money, we'll send you the grand prize of whatever, a couple $100,000 or whatever. So again, people, they just get excited. They don't really think about it. They think about all this money they're going to get, and then they end up sending money. Usually it's like a wire transfer or something like that. And then, once the money's gone, it's gone, because typically the suspects are usually not even in the same country. So they just get the money wired to them. And then it's almost impossible for the police to track them down and get the money back. Next slide, Crystal. Next one, wait, sorry. Yeah. A lot of scams, okay. Again, just, we talk about lottery scams. Remember, a lot of times, the old saying goes, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. I mean, again, when you start thinking about all this money you're going to get, you kind of, sometimes your common sense goes out the window. Does it make sense if you hit a lottery for a couple $100,000 or millions of dollars? Would it make sense that you have to send money ahead of time before you collect this prize? I mean, if you actually won a lottery, you collect the money and then you pay the taxes after. But again, we just get so caught up and we get excited, and for whatever reason, and like I said, and the people who do this, they realize that, and that's why they do it. And then a lot of times they also, like in the grandparent scam, they'll say when the grandchild calls, they'll say, oh, and please don't tell my parents, because they don't want the victim to check with anybody, Or same thing when they say the person's kidnapped, they'll say, don't call the police or else. And then the person obviously like, well, I didn't call the police because they told me they would hurt my loved one. And then, so then, usually we get called after the fact. Next slide, Crystal. Okay, so another one, it's the IRS. It's called the IRS scam. So this one, again, typically you get a phone call, and a lot of times, if everyone has caller ID now. So when you look at your phone, it might actually say from the Internal Revenue Service, or just like it'll be an agency, and it's on the caller ID. But it's worth noting that there's a lot of phone spoof apps where you can disguise your number, and basically you can call from your number, and you can put in whatever number you want to come up for the person receiving it. So again, so now you get the phone call, oh, it's from the IRS. Now you answer the phone, and typically they'll say, you owe back taxes, or you owe some kind of money to the government. And typically what they'll do is they'll say, if you don't pay this money now, we're going to issue a warrant for your arrest, and the police are going to come lock you up. So again, what they do there is they prey on your fears. And from there, they'll either have you wire money, or sometimes they'll actually get a prepaid card. They'll tell you to go, go to the Walgreens or go to wherever and get, like, one of those prepaid Visa cards, X amount of money. And a lot of times they'll keep you on the phone, or they'll say, once they get the victim to agree to actually go get the card, they'll say, well, here's this number, you call us back at this number. And then you call them back and you have the prepaid card, and they ask you to read the number on the card. And once they have that card, basically it's as good as having the card itself. So now they have that money, and that money's gone. So again, it's just worth knowing. So typically the IRS is not going to call you on the phone to collect money. They probably won't email you either. If anything, they would send you a letter in the mail. And it's also important to note that people, again, these criminals, these scammers, they'll actually get official IRS letterhead, and they'll send you, it'll look like an official document saying that you owe money, and then there'll be a number. But the thing is, the number that they have you call, it doesn't actually go to the IRS, it goes to them. And then they pretend like they're the IRS, and then they go forward with the same instructions. If you don't pay this by this amount of time, we're going to issue a warrant for you. So the other thing, when you talk about utility bills or taxes and stuff like that, those are civil matters and they're not criminal. So even when you owe money, the IRS might garnish your wages or something like that, or work out a payment plan, but they're not going to issue a warrant for your arrest to have you arrested. So it's just important to note that. But again, the scammers know that people don't. Again, they prey on the fears of people, and then that's how they get them to do what they want them to do. Next slide. Again, so I said, typically, so just protect yourself. The IRS will usually notify you by mail. IRS does not request payment via prepaid cards or iTunes cards. If you receive a voicemail requesting you to call the IRS because you owe money, you'll be arrested. Again, we say call the police. Again, the IRS is not going to have a warrant issued for you. So just, always check with somebody. And even if you get letterhead that looks official from the IRS, if you don't think, if it feels funny for you, we always say, do a little research, get the actual number yourself, and then actually make sure you're calling the actual IRS. And then you'll tell them, you say, hey, listen, I got this letter, it looks official, but here's the number. And they know to look out for these scams too. So they'll say, yeah, just throw it in the trash. That's not us, And just make sure you do a little research, or always ask somebody else, family member, parents, child, whoever. Ask them, if you receive something. Like I said, don't ever go it on your own, because a lot of times we find out after the fact, and then it's too late because the money's gone. Next slide. There's also we call online dating scams. So typically these start via like a social media, like a Facebook account. You might get a message from somebody, and then the person befriends you, and then usually these type of scams, they'll go on a little longer because the scammer wants to establish a relationship with the person, and then a lot of times it'll be like a romantic relationship, long distance relationship, all via social media, Facebook. So the scammer, they'll put a lot of time in, and it might start with just like, say, Facebook Messenger, and then they might say, hey, do you want to FaceTime? They'll FaceTime, and it's an actual person. So you go back and forth, and then they might, hey, can I have your phone number? And now they'll talk to you on the phone. And a lot of times, once they get you on the phone, they'll try to find something that you have in common. A big one is religion. A lot of times they prey on people who are very religious. And then after a while, after, a couple of weeks or even a month or two, after they've built up that relationship with the individual, they'll say something like, oh, I would love to come to see you, but I still don't have the money for the plane ticket. So, hey, will you send me the money for the plane ticket? Or they'll say, I'd love to see you, but I have this medical condition I have to take care of first. However, I don't have the money for the hospital bill. If you sent me money for the hospital, I would be able to come see you. And then, of course, the person sends money, and a lot of times they'll keep them on the hook. They'll do this a bunch of times. They'll say, oh yeah, no, listen, I got the money for the plane ticket, but you know what? This emergency came up, my car broke down, so I had to use it for that. And again, they'll keep this going and going as long as they can until the victim finally figures out, that it is a scam and they cut them off. But those ones, like I said, those are a little more, the online dating stuff, a little more, it's a little more drawn out. But again, they'll just keep asking you for money for different things, or like, again, it's what religion, they might ask for money to donate to their church. I really like to donate to my church, but I can't right now. So again, if you send me some money, you know how, you're religious like me. I think it'd be great, it'd be good for all of us. We're doing a good thing. So the person just continues to send this person money, and the scammer has no intention of actually having a real relationship with the person, or actually have a meeting with them. They just use them to get money over the long term consistently. What else? Yeah, the other thing is they might say they're outside the country, and again, if they're outside the country, that's a more expensive plane ticket. But again, the victim is so, at this point, they've fallen in love with the person or whatever, and they'll do anything because they want to see them too. And then they send money, and then once they get the money, they make excuses as to why, I need more money. And that just goes on and on and on until the person finally cuts them off. Next slide, Crystal. Next slide. Yep. So again, we always say protect yourself. Check with a family member before sending money to anybody, especially somebody you've never met in person. Just be wary of people online in general who want to be your friend real quick, or they want to date you quickly, or they start asking personal questions right off the bat. Just again, if you have that kind of like that sixth sense where kind of that feeling, if something doesn't feel right, listen to that instinct, because you're probably right. And then obviously, be skeptical if the person asks for money for a hospital bill, or they ask for, prepaid credit cards and things like that. If you have something to someone you met online, don't feel embarrassed, contact the police, like I said, reach out to a family member, let them know. But definitely the police want to know, just because we have to keep track of these things, just so we're aware of what kind of scams are trending. So, so the more we know, the more we can share with the community to make them, more on guard for these type of things. Next slide, Crystal. So phishing is when typically you'll get an email, and again, it will look legit. It'll be from either like, maybe like if you have a credit card account or a bank account, and it will say, we noticed that someone tried to log into your account and it was suspicious. We just need you to verify your information. And at that point, they'll ask you to give you like name, social security number, date of birth, and they might even ask for like your mother's maiden name, stuff like that. All the information you need to open up credit, or I'll get a credit card. Again, once they have the information, now they can take out loans in your name. They can open up credit cards, and typically when they have that information, they're going to do it as fast as they can, because they know it's kind of time's working against them until the victim actually realizes that they've just been victim of phishing, and they've given their information to to these scammers. Next slide. Again, if you get an email from your bank saying there's an issue with your account, which you do, again, just don't click on the link. Call the number on the back of your bank card. Because a lot of times, when you click on the link, then it just, it might even be spam mail, where now it can send a virus to your computer. And that's another whole other scam where they, hackers, they basically take your computer hostage. Then you need money to release it. But again, just don't entertain it. Just delete the email, and then just check the number on the back of your credit card. And call them and just say, hey, I received this email. Just explain what the email said. And again, they'll probably say, oh yeah, that's, just delete that. I'll throw it in the trash, because don't give any information out to anytime I receive an email like that. Next slide. So before we do questions, I have a couple other scams I just wanted to go over, just because, a lot of the stuff, right, a lot of times right now, the way things are, because the internet is so prevalent, we do see a lot of internet scams, because it's just, people can send out 1,000 emails and just sit back and wait, and wait for the money to come in, or just kind of until they hook somebody. But there's still some scams out there where people, they'll still, do it in person. So one of them is when like someone will show up at your house and they'll say they're from the utility company, the gas company, whatever. And what they'll do is they'll say, you know, I need to check your meter, I need to check your gas. So there's been a gas leak. So typically they'll say, you know, can you take me, where's your gas meter, or where does, you know, where's your main gas line? So for most people, it's in the basement. So again, the person might show up your door, the medical official, they could have an ID of the company, you know, National Grid or something like that. And what happens is when you take them in the basement and they're supposedly checking the leak or checking your meter, they have somebody else, usually like a partner, and the partner will typically, once you're downstairs, being occupied by this utility worker, their partner's upstairs, usually go right to your bedroom. They try to go like, you know, a jewelry box, and they'll try to get as much stuff as they can and get out. And then again, now they'll leave, and then the person who checked your meter, he might get a phone call from his partner saying we're all set. And he'll be like, okay, you know, it looks good. The place looks great, blah, blah, blah. Have a nice day. So now they leave and you have no idea. It's only later when you start realizing that something's actually missing. Again, that's when they do in person. Another one is when I think about the weather and stuff like that. So we, you know, a few years back, it snowed. So we had people that were getting scammed. People were coming to rake the snow off their roofs. And what they were doing in those scams is they would actually show up and they give you a price. They'd say like $200. And they'd actually do the job. And then again, in the case of people who were senior citizens, once they completed the job, they'd say, oh yeah, great job. All right, that's $1,000. And the victim was like, well, no, wait a second, you said 200. Like, I didn't say 200. I've been here for 2 hours. This is a lot of work. You know, you give me, you know, and basically they would strong arm the person into giving them more money than they actually agreed upon again. And they do this, like, they target senior citizens with this because they think they can intimidate them and bully them. Another one is, it's in, you know, summertime, it's the driveway pavers. You know, they'll knock on your door, say, hey, I noticed your driveway, you know, looks a little rough. Well, you know, we can pave it for you and they'll give you a good price. And then they'll pave it and it looks good, but it's just like a skim coat. And it just, in about a month or so, your driveway it's gonna come out to be broken. It's gonna be a mess. And basically it said, it's just a waste of money. But again, they're just gonna do a quick skim coat, get some money, and they'll hit as many people as they can to get the most bang for their buck, so to speak. What else am I looking at here? Another thing, anytime there's any kind of tragedy, be it international, local, you always want to look for the scammers. They take advantage of this. So say there's wildfires in California, you might get a phone call. Hey, we're raising money for the victims of the wildfire. You know, all the people have been displaced and forests burnt down, this, that, and the other thing. So again, you're like, oh yeah, that's a good cause. So you donate, thinking that you're actually donating to that cause. And then meanwhile, it's just going to these scammers. But again, you know, you don't know any better. You're just trying to do a good thing. And they prey upon that. That happened during the marathon bombing a lot. After the marathon bombing, there was all these people contacting people to raise money for the victims of the bombing. And some of them were legit, but we found out later a lot of them were not legit. It was just these scammers collecting money. What else do I got? Oh, just one more thing I forgot to mention. This is called the hitman scam. This is where you get a letter from somebody, and what they'll say is, I've been hired by a hitman to kill you. And they'll say, you know, however, I've been watching you and I think you're a good person and I don't want to go through with it. However, for me not to go through with it, you have to pay me, you know, I was getting paid $10,000 to kill you. If you give me $5,000, I won't kill you. So again, you get a letter like that, and you know, people are like, oh my God, like they'll come to the police station like, oh, is this legit? And you tell them, say, no, it's not legit. Again, they're just preying on your fears. And you know, again, just anytime you get a letter, something like that, or anything that doesn't seem right, we always say call the police, because a lot of times, you know, you're not the only one. We'll have a list of people. Oh yeah, we've got a bunch of those letters. So call the police or ask a family member to look at it, and you know, don't give out any information before checking with somebody. And that's all I have.
I mean, a good takeaway, some good tips, you know. I mean, and I do this all the time. You know, we get phone calls every day. My mother gets phone calls every day. My grandmother gets phone calls every day. If you don't know the number, if you're unfamiliar with that number, let it ring, have them leave a message. Because guess what? You can always go back and listen to the message and say, huh, all right, if that message is legit, they're going to give you a name, a company, and a callback number. And at that point, you can try to do your investigation, do your homework that way. You can call back that number. But I probably get about 9 phone calls a day on my personal cell phone, and I don't pick up. I allow them to leave a message, and if I choose to call them back, I'll call them back. Also, you also have to remember that just because on your caller ID, on your cell phone, on your residential phone, it says, so I live in a 617 area code. I get numerous phone calls, 617 area code, and even the first 3 digits on my cell phone, thinking that it's a friend. But they have the ability now, the capability now, to through technology to spoof these numbers. So you think it's a local number calling you, you think it's a friend's number calling you, but it's not. So just remember, when you get these internet caller IDs on your phone, that this guy is a local address or a local area code, you think it's someone that you may know, and most of the times it's not. They have the capability to spoof that number. What else things we could go? I mean, if you're suspicious about something, you don't want to make any payments. No one's going to ask for an immediate payment, especially if they're asking you to say use the most popular scam is go out and purchase a $500 Green Dot card. As Officer Mahoney stated, you know, once you give that number out, it disappears. Whoever is on the receiving end who received out those digit numbers, they already are in receipt of the payment. So that payment is gone and it's untraceable. The police does not have the technology to know where that goes to. So it's important that, you know, look out for the elderly, look out for your neighbor. Why are you going to a convenience store? Why are you purchasing so many rewards card or iTunes cards? It doesn't make sense. No one's going to ask payment in that form. So, you know, not only look out for yourself, but also look out for your neighbors. So when you're in doubt, you know, you don't want to make that payment. In addition, your trash, you'll be surprised how many people go through your trash. So what I do, what I tell a lot of my friends and their parents is, if you have something with your name, with your date of birth, I'll rip it up, I'll dump it in 2 different trash bins. You can purchase things where it'll black out your vital information, your date of birth, stuff like that. So, you know, if not, get a magic marker or get a pen and scrape it all out, because all they need is your name, your address, and your zip code. And if they're able to obtain some type of credit card information, they're able to do some vicious stuff to you. And that contributes a lot to the identity theft, which we identified earlier. And also, you're allowed 1 free credit report a year. So there are 3 credit report agencies. You can look that up online, and you're able to receive 1 credit report. So you should check your credit report, because you never know who were able to obtain your information and open up credit cards. We've even seen mortgages being created in the victim's name. So. And that's pretty much all I have. Do you have anything else to add?
Just on those credit, it's Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. Those are the 3 major. Those are the 3 major credit, reporting bureaus. And we also say if you ever think that your identity has been compromised, if you gave some information out, or if you lost your wallet with your ID in it and some credit cards, we always say to reach out to TransUnion. In theory, they say that you're only supposed to notify one of them, and they'll tell the other 2. But I always say, just to be safe, I always say just notify all 3. Equifax, TransUnion, Experian. And what they'll do is they'll put a flag on your name. So for like 6 months to a year. So anytime somebody tries to open up a credit card account, take out a loan, anything like that, they'll notify you first and say, hey, did you try to open this credit card? Did you try to take out a loan? And then if you didn't, you can say, no, that wasn't me. And they say, all right, fine. And they won't grant it.
Yeah, these scammers that's out there, they prey on your fear. My mother, my grandmother, they show me a piece of paper and say, hey, I go, it says Social Security. It'll say Medicare. Oh, it's something affecting my benefits. So they want to capture your emotion first, draw you in, and then for them to prey on you. So just because it says Social Security, Medicare, you get excited. But if you read the fine print, it could be something that will be able to translate what your Social Security benefits are, or they're just trying to get more information or try to obtain your business. So you want to question everything, and if it's something that you're unaware of, there are agencies out there that can perhaps look through the bills for you. There are senior centers that could, you could bring the document over there, and you have agencies that can assist you and say whether this is legitimate or not. So just don't call the numbers and give out your information. Question everything, and there are agencies out there that can assist you, both city and state agencies. So I would highly encourage that. And thank you.
Thank you both. This is really incredible information. We do have some questions. I'm going to start with I'm going to kind of work backwards a little bit. One, I think I can answer, but I just want to make sure. It's what is Uville House? I think in one of your slides it said call Uville. My guess is that's just because maybe you were presenting there. And
Correct. That was it. Yep. That's right.
Do you want to just explain?
Oh yeah. So now when we put, typically when we put together, these presentations, it might be for a specific location. So in this presentation, it was for the Uville Hospital, which is now the Spalding, but at the time it was the Uville. So again, that was our audience. It would say, again, either reach out to the police, or if you don't want to talk to the police, just talk to somebody basically in the Uville house that worked there.
Thank you. That's what I thought. I was going to type it in for the answer, but wanted to make sure. I appreciate it. But that does bring up a really good point of what Ann was saying, to reach out to other people, police, absolutely. But, the senior center, the multi-service center, and myself, the housing liaison, any of the agencies in town would be happy to work with people and help make sure that, if something's legitimate or not, or we can help you contact the police. And also, if you do need help with your credit report, there's a number of agencies, Justice Start and Cambridge Economic Opportunity Committee in particular, that can help with that. So those are really good points. Other questions, you mentioned, you talked a bit about the in-person situations where someone comes and really seems legit. For instance, the one that you described about the utility company, and they might even have an ID. Can you give some tips on what kinds of questions to ask, to really kind of figure out if that's a real ID or not, or how to handle that?
So just very simple, to keep it simple. So the first thing we say is don't open the door, right? Or just, if it's, if you have a screen, just don't let them in your house, basically. Just, keep them outside. And then it's very simple. When they show up and they say, oh yeah, we're reading meters, or we have a gas in the area, just say, okay, we're from National Grid, here's my ID. Okay, that's fine. All right, listen, just wait right there. I just want to call the police. I just want to just make sure that there's actually a gas leak, or you guys should be in the area working. And if they're legit, they'll say, yeah, no problem. They'll wait. If they're not legit, they're just going to leave. Or they'll say, you don't have to call the police. Why do you call the police? We're here. I'm telling you, we're here. This is an emergency. You have to let us in. And again, they'll try to intimidate you, bully you. Just say, no, that's fine. I'm just going to stay right there. I'm just going to call the police and make sure this is legit.
And most of the utility companies out there actually give the neighborhood, the residents, the notification that they're going to have personnel out there, surveying the area, knocking on doors. Most utility companies already know that because they're aware of the scams that's out there. But even more simple, look outside the window. Do you see a utility vehicle out there with adequate markings? If you don't, there's something wrong with it. Because most likely the utility vehicle, a marked utility vehicle, should be pretty visible right outside. I don't see anyone walking a few blocks doing door to door. Just have nature will found a utility vehicle, but just simple common sense. Take a peek, look outside the window. You see a utility vehicle. Is there something wrong with your utility that requires service? Most of the time, these utility companies would send out notification either by mail or you'll get a voicemail too. So, keep all that in mind, but I don't want you to open up your doors to just anyone. Even the police, we are required to carry identification, on us. So if you look out the window and you know what, if you question this officer's uniform and it's kind of, doesn't look normal, take a peek outside. Is there a patrol car out there? There's not. So I should question it. I should say, wait a minute, as Officer Mahoney said, let me just call the police because this is what I was told to do. I don't want to open up, I don't want to open up the door. Speak through the door. Have it locked. So this is just some simple things that
That's
you
great.
can do.
That's great. Another question is about a specific situation. Is there another Census Bureau other than the one every 10 years? The person has been visited, called, and believes harassed by, quote, the American Census Bureau?
So I'm not familiar. And I thought typically, I know, just personally I'm speaking, usually I receive the census thing in the mail and they tell you, be counted, and they want you to fill it out, is there still, X amount of people in your household, please send it back. I mean, I don't know. Have you known anybody to actually have them go door to door looking for census? They have, yeah. So I haven't seen that, but.
I've actually experienced that because I've ignored the letter. Shame on me.
Okay.
But I've actually ignored the letter and I didn't send the letter because I ignored the letter. The Census Bureau, they actually contract people out there. So they are paid agents of the Census Bureau. So physically, someone track you down and say, hey, we just want to know whether you do reside in this dwelling, because what it does is it provides certain funding for amount of residents within there. So it's in your benefit. It's in their benefit to be counted. That's why the Census Bureau is out there. But normally you receive some type of notification. Normally, if you ignore the mail notification, they'll actually send it in person out there because it's in their benefit. It's in the town's benefit to be counted. That's why the Census Bureau is so adamant about tracking people down. So, some question is, did you actually receive something in the mail about the Census Bureau and, you just threw it away? And if so, maybe that's why the guy's out there just inquiring. But you should not be letting that person in the house.
And Susan Pacheco, who is the director of the Senior Center, has also answered that there's the American Community Survey. Susan, if you want to, maybe I wish we could plug you in so you could talk. But if you want to say a little bit more about that, I can read it off. But also she says that the American ACS would not be going door to door. U.S. Census every 10 years is every 10 years, and you would be notified if you had failed to reply. And then, as you said, door to door comes, but they have legitimate ID. But I also believe that's in a certain time period. So, I think it goes back to, if you're in question, it's, bring the information to someone and hopefully they can help figure it out. And I think the Senior Center is a really good Council on Aging resource, 617-349-6220. And I apologize, Susan, I said Director of Senior Center, it's Council on Aging, I apologize. Another question is,
sorry, Maura, I upgraded Susan in case you want to let her talk for a second.
all right.
Or you're going to regret me talking. I had to join Officer Mahoney and Sergeant Yam on
boy.
this.
I was going to say, maybe we should put her on mute. You guys know Susan? Great resource for the seniors.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But
I think what you two have done is great. And I'd wanted to elaborate a little bit more on that door to door with the census, because that is clearly one of the big things. And given that we just completed the 2020 census, no one is going to be knocking on your door now because everything has been completed. If you had failed to reply any in person or any of the online forms that have been sent out, no one is coming around now. And they didn't do so during COVID times. We're talking about in 2010, yes, they would be knocking on your door, but you would have been notified with, proper IDs, etc. But don't let anybody in.
Yep. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Crystal, for upgrading Susan.
Thank you, Crystal.
Thank you, Susan. Another question is, does Yahoo notify you if you do not upgrade? Does Yahoo notify you if you do not upgrade? Do they say that you will not be able to send or receive future emails?
I've never had that.
I can't speak on Yahoo or Google's, but I do remember receiving stuff from Google services that if I don't reply, because you know it's a free service, Google, that provides to people who use them. So they, in the beginning, when you sign up, you do probably agree to some type of updates or an agreement in the future. But I can't speak on their behalf. I'm not an expert. I'm not a technical guy. But I do believe that when you do sign up for AOL, Google, that you do agree with the terms, you know, when you use their services. And I believe an update is required at times. Because I know I have updated myself on Google itself, where it requires more update of a security measure, current phone number, current email, but yet they would never ask for credit card information.
Right.
So that's different, you know. So I don't know specifically, but again, I have done it. They have asked me to upgrade my security preference, alternative email, a phone number where they can have third-party security measures. But just remember, I don't give out date of births. I don't give out social security numbers. We don't give out credit card numbers for any updates at all. That should not be required. So if they do require you, then I probably would not provide any type of information and ignore that email.
Do you mind if I add something? I think it's important, Sergeant Yam, you just stated, I think the two-step verification process is so important. When you may, you know, have difficulty logging into somewhere, or if you're using one of the public computers at the libraries or at the senior center, that you do a two-system verification, because if you're going to access especially sensitive information like bank statements or credit card statements, you want to be able, and you're using a public computer, you want to make sure that you have some sort of two-step verification. So the entity that you're trying to get information from knows that it's you, that you're legit. And I think also a big other, I haven't seen this one in a while, but the computer scams that are out there, that you might get locked out of something, you might be legitimately doing something, and then a 1-800 number shows up and says that, you know, you've been breached, you need to contact this number, we'll walk you through it. Total scam. If you call that 1-800, it's not Microsoft. Microsoft is not contacting you. If you contact that number, they're going to ask you for information, and they're going to enter, I wouldn't know how they do it, but they enter into the system and they will breach everything that you have, hack your emails, get information that you may have. So just disregard. If you're not initiating it, disregard everything.
I mean, I'm not a computer guy, and only thing I could say is the public domains, right? You go to, say, a coffee house. You do not want to use a public domain that you don't want to use an outside place to utilize their internet for your banking needs.
Right.
That's so important right now. And I really have to stress that, because so many people got scammed that way. And that two-step verification is great. When I pay certain bills online, and the two-step verification is, I log onto my bank account. Once I log onto my bank account, it says, okay, now we're going to send you a code to your cell phone via text message. And so as I'm trying to log into my bank account, they won't let me log on until I enter that two-step verification. So now they call me or they text me on my cell phone. They give you a 5, 6, 7-digit number, and you enter it into your second verification step. And once I enter that, the one-time number, then it allows you into your account for you to conduct your banking and your finances. So that's what we talked about, the two-step verification. And you know what? I love it. It's great. I use it all the time. But it's a good takeaway from this is the two-step is good, but using public domain, meaning using outside Wi-Fi access for sensitive stuff, don't do it. A lot of people, because people have the capability of tapping into that Wi-Fi and getting sensitive data. If you're in a coffee shop, people can, what they say, shoulder surf. They can look over that you're logging in, and believe me, there are people out there, it has happened in the city, that they'll look over your shoulder just to grab the name, the username, the password. They're able to do that. So you just don't know about what technology. So when you're out there and you're accessing personal, vital, financial information, just be aware. Just don't even do it outside. You utilize your home Wi-Fi or Wi-Fi that's secure. Maybe that's in the center that you can utilize.
Just a couple of other questions I want to make sure we get in. This one is for all of you. I think, Susan, you might be very helpful in this also. Is there a Massachusetts Medicare mandate law that requires retirees with private insurance to relinquish private insurance and be forced to apply for Medicare? I've been receiving continuous phone calls and threatened with loss of my present insurance by March 22. I do not want Medicare, even if it's free.
I caught most of the question. You were in and out, but I think I got.
Oh, sorry.
I think I got the gist of it. First of all, I will say if it's via phone or computer, Medicare will not be contacting you. Social Security doesn't contact you. Medicare doesn't contact you. Are they able during open enrollment periods? If you are of the magic age of 65 and older, you are going to get information of all the insurance carriers out there. You're going to get it. There's just no ands, ifs, or buts about it. You're going to get all that information. But as far as mandating you to enroll in anything, you don't have to enroll in anything. If in the future you choose to enroll in something, you will have a penalty, but you'll never be mandated. So I'm careful in how I say that. So if you reach retirement age and you choose to not enroll in Medicare or a Medicare supplemental plan, your choice. I wouldn't recommend it, your choice not to. But if in the future, like at age 70, you chose to do so, you would be penalized. If that answers the question, if I caught all of that.
I believe so,
But
yes.
I would suggest always to whoever asked that question, contact the Council on Aging, the SHINE service. That stands for SHINE Health Information Needs of Elders. That is a certified individual by the state who can be able to counsel anyone over the age of 65 on Medicare and Medigap insurance plans.
Thank you. Another is, it's a bit long, I will do my best. And please signal if I'm going in and out. The person has received a couple of mailings on Eversource letterhead saying that they've been unable to gain access to equipment at the person's house to perform corrosion inspections on inside gas meters and pipers, and the gas service could be interrupted. The person called the number on the letter and they told the person that the letter was not connected to any account, so they'd need to call back. They did not get a call back, and so this person who's sending in the question is assuming that, or wondering if it's now, if it's a scam. And if in the future they get a letter, should they Google the company themselves and call, or what else should they do?
Yeah, that sounds like a scam to me. But again, when you do get these letters and you're not sure about it, don't call the number on the letter, because obviously that's what they want you to do. So just find, you Google or whatever, look it up, find the number yourself, and then you know it's the actual number. And then the company will tell you if this is actually going on. And they might even tell you, yeah, no. They might say, yeah, this is, people have been calling us about these letters, just, throw it in the trash, or don't call back, ignore it. And if it's legit, again, you want to make sure you're actually calling the company, and then they'll tell you the steps you need to take to accommodate whatever services that they need to complete.
I went through that myself, actually. If you get a letter about equipment replacement for a gas meter, which does happen, what I would do is they would give you a phone number, or you could contact the phone number, which is on your billing statement. You could contact Eversource directly, customer service, let them know that you received a letter. I'm not sure this letter is legitimate. Tell them your account number. Your account number will flag if your meter needs or your equipment needs to be replaced. So, and if it does, they will give you a phone number. You will make an appointment with that person who handles that account. So just because it's Eversource that's calling you, but they may subcontract that out to a subcontractor, and that contractor is going to be doing the work. So that has happened in the past. But your first step, if you receive a letter about replacing your gas meter, contact the number that's on your gas bill. Say, hey, this is my account number. I received a letter. I want to know whether this letter is legitimate or whether it's fake. They'll tell you, well, you know what, your gas meter has been replaced last year. You're fine. I would ignore the letter, or they'll say, no, we've been trying to reach you. We sent you numerous letters, but we need to replace your meter. And if that's the case, they give you the phone number. You call the number. They'll send an appointment. And at that point, they'll tell you that whether it's you don't know, because it could be Eversource employee that's swapping out the meter, or it could be a subcontractor that's swapping out the meter. But I will contact them and they'll give you the information of exactly when and where and who's gonna do that equipment change for you.
Really terrific. One comment and two more quick questions, which I think will bring us to the end. We might have to do a round two with you all, because this has been such important information, and really appreciate it. The comment is, and I guess sort of a question that someone might want to respond to, is back to the census issue. The person that was contacted said that the people indicated they were in addition to the Federal Census Bureau as a subsidy. And they went to the person's home after the person had filled out the federal census. Doesn't sound right. I see Susan, I see everybody's head shaking.
That doesn't sound right at all.
Yeah.
You can always call the Census Bureau and find out some information. You don't want either which way. You don't want to give vital information out, right? Date of birth, stuff that may lead to your banking institution, credit cards. So what could help is you call the Census Bureau. They can tell you it's fake. Let them know that it's fake. But also feel free to also call the Attorney General's office to let them make sure that they're aware of. They want to know what's going on too. That's affecting the residents of the state. So the Attorney General's office is a great resource. They'll be able to direct you to either state or local resources that can do that. Or more importantly, the Attorney General's office is going to contact the Census Bureau and say, hey, we're receiving a high amount of fake scammers and they're using the Census Bureau. They're using your name for this. So we want you to look into this, and we want you to find a solution for it or develop a strategy. So also keep in mind the Attorney General's office can also guide you to different types of agencies. So, but we want to know this information both on the local and state level, and I'm sure federal level, of course, because you're using the Census Bureau. So keep that in mind.
And that's a quick question. If someone receives a call or believes they're being scammed and they know it and they do not respond, just hang up the phone or whatever, do you still want any of us to report that to you, that it happened, so that you have that detail?
Absolutely, because what that does is the more you call with everything, it dictates services. So the more people call about increase of scams in a local area, local district, local community, the more it dictates services for that community and say, hey, you know what? We know it's an uptick of scams in this particular area. Let's get the word out. So we have the capability through technology or just having meetings like this just to get the word out. So we want to know the type of scam that's out there, because every year there's a little tweak on scam that's pretty clever. We want to get that information out. So if someone has attempted to scam you, we want to know that. We want to know the attempted, what we call flim flam or a scam, because it counts. I mean, we had 192 within 11 months of last year, and I'm sure it's on the rise. So we want to know these numbers because it dictates services for that community.
And Mark, to your point, it's a good practice. Again, when someone does call you and doesn't feel right, and they start asking for information, we say don't engage with the person, just hang up. Because a lot of times what happens is they start engaging with the person to question them, like, this isn't real. because they want to let them know that they can't be fooled or whatever. And then like a lot of these people, they're really good con artists, and all of a sudden they get you in a conversation, and then all of a sudden now you're on the phone with this person, and maybe you get information you didn't want to give or whatever. So again, we just say just hang up and just leave it at that.
It's okay to be rude.
Yeah, be rude, exactly.
And I think it's important because we live in such a work and live in such a diverse community that the scammers also can make sure they target people of different linguistic communities. So, I can speak to personally people that I know that will answer a phone and they'll say, I don't speak English. And then that caller will ask, oh, what language? They already know what language. And then they're already set. Oh, they'll say, oh, I speak Portuguese. Well, lo and behold, that caller speaks Portuguese. And then just as Sergeant Yam said, they start engaging. They start speaking in that native language. People are isolated. People are so thrilled to hear, someone speaking to them in their native language. And before you know it, that person who has all their bills paid by a family member or a professional agent doing all this money management somehow is now taking money and sending it to this new friend that they have just, gotten a call out of the blue. So just keeping in mind those individuals that are even more isolated due to language.
Thank you. That's a incredibly important point, and really appreciate it. And thank you for jumping into all of this. We are out of time. One last question is, what is the number or email to send scams or phishing information to?
Oh, so you could just, if you want to call the Cambridge Police, the non-emergency line, it's 617-349-3300. Just to say, listen, I want to, report that not a victim of a scam. I think someone tried to scam me.
If you go on
Yeah.
our website will give you our emails. Our emails would actually be at the end of this presentation as well. But feel free to go on to Cambridge Police website and you'll see all the directory where you can give information to.
Terrific. And Susan, do you want to shout out the number to call for?
Yes, Cambridge Council on Aging, 617-349-6220.
Thank you, Officer Mahoney and Sergeant Yam and Susan and Crystal. This is incredibly important information, as we've all said many times. And these scammers are really creative and convincing. And they're just that, they're convincing. So thank you. And please, anyone who's been attending, thank you for attending, and please let any of us know if you have any questions. Have a good